could always use more heroes.
And welcome back to episode 4 of Hero Recall, and I'm here with the lovely James TigratoPower over in Canada, and it looks sunny in Canada. Is it sunny in Canada right now?
Yes, actually, and it's great because it's been cloudy the past few days.
It was
like April showers bring May flowers. So
it was like 90 degrees here yesterday, and I had to do the lawn and stuff in St. Louis, and I fucking hated it.
Like 30 Celsius.
I don't know. It's hot.
That's like 30 Celsius.
It's pretty
100
hot.
is almost 40.
And I should know because I grew up with Celsius, but then
Frame of reference, it's 14 degrees Celsius here right now, which is shorts weather for me.
Okay, fair enough.
But I wear shorts at cold temperatures, so.
And a little bit of personal news this week. So, because I like to start off with a little bit about us, because why not? You may as well learn the people that are running your show. So, James, you have an exciting purchase that you made. You want to talk about it?
Yes, just yesterday on Easter. Happy Easter, everybody. I'm going to use that joke one more time. Happy Easter. Sorry. I was like sitting at home yesterday before family came home. I'm like, wait. Aren't the electronic stores going to have Easter deals? And they did. And they had one of the Omen HP laptops, or not laptops, desktops. One of the same brand that they used in Overwatch League. It was on sale for $400. I'm like, okay, I was gonna buy this right away, but I bought it. I'm like telling Tom, like, I got the computer. I don't know if I'll get the monitor right away. And I was like, wait, maybe I should check the deals on the monitor. So I just bought everything. I bought a monitor,
which is also an Omen. To the inner devil inside you on your shoulder, and you said, I have to have all the things.
It's an Omen monitor too, so I'm like full branded.
Full branded.
And then I bought a Corsair 4-piece set headset, mouse, keyboard, and mouse pad.
Did you get this guy? Oh god, my bottom fell off. This is a Logitech, I think, but did you get like these weights in them? You know the weights at the bottom?
No, the mouse is a Corsair as well. But the keyboard's RGB. The computer, I'm pretty sure, is RGB
I just broke my mouse here. Not to worry.
I think I'm probably gonna set, as long as I might switch the colors up, but at first I'm probably gonna have like the computer blue and then the keyboard yellow for Boston.
There you go.
Awesome. I also picked up Overwatch on PC, so when that stuff comes in, I'll have Overwatch right away.
Now, if you want,
because it was on 66% off.
If you want alternative accounts, you remember on PC you have to buy them. You don't get to make them for free, so it might be worth picking up a second copy in case you want to have a dummy account.
I'll wait for another sale.
April shower.
My brain's not working today.
As far as me, I'm good. I mean, we had some really nice runs playing recently. I'm kind of back up to mid-high plat, and I'm excited to keep pushing towards diamond, which is obviously my current goal. My wife went to see My Favorite Murder podcast live the other day. She's a big fan of that, and she got me this shirt. I don't know if you can see it too much, but it says, "Here's the thing, fuck everyone," which I think is was a very nice present of her, so I'm excited about that. So I decided to wear it today. Okay, so let's get into the Overwatch. So first of all, game news for Overwatch. Let's talk about the big thing going on right now, which is the event. And the event is Archives. Now, traditionally, Archives is one of the more exciting events of the year because that's when you get to learn, hopefully, some lore. You get a nice new PvE element to Overwatch, which is something that people really enjoy, but they don't let you have for more than like 2-3 weeks a year. Luckily, they do bring back the previous PvE events every year, so at least you can go, like, every year there's kind of more value with this time period that you're logging in. And of course, there's like special sprays and everything else for doing it on different difficulties. So we've both had a couple hearty runs at Storm Rising, which is the event this year. What's your first take on it?
Okay, my first take on it is the cutscenes are better than any of the events before. The music is better than any of the events before. Pretty much everything about that event is better than any of the events before except the actual fucking mission itself. Because the mission itself, yeah, it's on a new map, but it reuses stuff that we've already seen in The enemies are all from Retribution.
Yeah.
No new enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a pretty easy mission as well. It's not like that exciting. I've played it. I haven't done it on Expert with the regular heroes, but I did it on Expert with randoms. Yeah. On all heroes. Easily. Like, I think we had one person die. Yeah. So it's kind of underwhelming. But the cutscenes are amazing. I wish they did.
The initial intro was stellar. Like, it was super cool to see all the heroes working together when they were back on, like, I guess, like, one of the earlier, better versions of Overwatch, and it was like Tracer, Mercy, and Winston and stuff, before Genji got recruited to Blackwatch.
I think it was after, actually.
Oh, really? Timeline-wise? I'm not sure.
No, because I'm pretty sure that Storm Rising is happening, like, right before the collapse of Overwatch.
But, yeah, so I don't know. The cutscenes are great. Like, getting to see Genji cut cars in half and everything was really fun. And like all the teamwork, Mercy like scooping him in the last minute.
I liked seeing Mercy blind people. I wish that was what ability she had, that she could just blind people as a self-defense instead of having Rez increase her healing abilities and let her blind people. But anyway, that's side note. I'm
not mad about that, actually. When we do a Mercy episode, that should be in the abilities that she should have. Yes. And then, of course, at the end, and this is spoilers, obviously. Like, if you're a big enough Overwatch fan that you're listening to this podcast, you've probably played it by now. If you haven't, skip forward, I don't know, 10 minutes.
We're sorry.
Yes. So they do eventually catch up with Maximilian, who has been one of my favorite kind of like villains of the whole thing. I was hoping they were going to make him a character at some point. Doesn't look like they are, but they do introduce a new character that looks like they definitely will be playable at some point, who is having a chat with Doomfist in a cave. And he appears to be some kind of, I want to say like, Predator Omnic hybrid. He has like these big sort of electric dreads coming back, but then this scary ass Omnic mask. What do we think of that guy? You think he's going to be cool?
I would definitely say he's probably to become a hero at some point, maybe in like a year and a half time frame or so. The thing that I find is interesting is he actually has similar markings on his forehead to Maximilian.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any relation there at all, or if it's just a coincidence. Because
that might just be like an evil Omnic thing, you know? It might just be like that the good Omnics have
because
like
you have certain marks on your head, you're evil.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They got to tell them apart somehow. But yeah, he's definitely he's definitely no Zenyatta. So yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat with you. I think that the cinematography effects for the intro and outro and all that stuff were great. I was mostly let down by the length of the mission. I mean, reusing assets is whatever. It was a little lazy, but I felt like when you burst through that final kind of gate and then it sort of takes you to Anubis, I think a lot of people at that point were thinking, cool, we get to do a little bit in Anubis. Nope. It just like cuts you off and you're like, well, that was like 8 minutes, like the total.
That was exactly what all of us thought the first time we played it.
Yeah.
So I played with my group. We were like, oh, that was it? After the cutscene ended, it's just mission complete. And we're like,
yeah. So that's a little bit of a letdown. I think Blizzard know it. I think Blizzard have this kind of, I think they know by now that enough people have made these comments that it was one of the more lackluster events. And what's sad about it is that it's, for a lot of people, it's their favorite event of the year. So I'm a little let down by that. I will say though, next event coming up is Anniversary, which means I do get to play some Lucio Ball, so I'm excited for that. But
and then after that, it's Summer Games, which means more Lucio Ball.
Competitive Lucio Ball. So yeah, really excited for that.
I get to be a fucking Masters player.
It's my favorite ever alternative to the actual game. Yeah. So that being said, Archives, bit of a stinker this year. Not terrible. The lore was fine. Don't really learn a whole lot, except for the fact that at some point they did catch Maximilian and Doomfist has a scary Omnic friend. That's pretty much the majority. Oh, and Genji can cut cars in half. That's pretty much the extent of the lore.
We can also expect that Sojourn will also probably become a hero.
Sojourn does seem like she's going. And here's the thing: like they keep teasing these heroes, and then just teasing more, and you're just kind of like, at what point are you actually going to drop one? Because they already
Here's
had the
the
Echo
thing.
thing and the Sojourn, and then this new Omnic, and then come on, man, like drop one
They
already.
set things up so that it's about a year before you actually see them.
Yeah.
So Echo, I think we'll probably see maybe by the end of the year, probably around the same time Ash came out last year. So
Right, BlizzCon.
I'd expect that. I'm actually thinking that we might, and this is probably just me being optimistic and because I want another mecha, I think we might be getting a mecha next.
You think so?
Because Busan came out
Mhm.
a little while back, and it would be a really convenient thing to do. And I also heard a while back, around the time they did Ash, that they're mostly looking at tanks and supports
Yeah.
as the next few heroes. I'd be thinking they're either going to do Demon, make her a main tank mecha, or Overlord, who will be an interesting off tank, probably flying almost all the time. But we'll see what happens. That's just my hope, and I think it would make sense for another mecha, because they're kind of drawing us away from mecha right now, so they're going to bait us to be like, oh, we're bringing mecha back. But
What do you think of Havana as well? Because Havana was actually announced as being going live on the PTR soon. So what do you think about
I'll be
the
able to
map
play
in general?
it.
Yeah.
It looks interesting. It looks almost a bit like Rialto, except without canals. So I feel like it will be another map. Actually, the middle part's kind of reminiscent of Gibraltar.
Yeah, I was leaning on Gibraltar because big open part at the beginning, then an inside part in the middle, and then open again for the ending. I had thoughts of Gibraltar.
The first part is like Rialto, so it might actually be a map where people will go goats for the first part, and then more
change it up,
floats, divey for the last parts. We'll see what happens, though.
Cool. Alrighty, so I mean, Archives, let us know your feelings on it this year. I know a lot of people were a little bit let down by it. Did you enjoy it? Were you one of the minority that thought it was a really great event and you had a good time? Or do you kind of agree with the masses that this one was a little bit of a letdown? Not a lot. It wasn't like, I mean, I find it hard to like bitch and moan because we have so much great content and it's always free. So that's why I don't like to bitch and moan about events.
And we mostly play for comp anyway.
And we mostly pay comp anyway, but I still do like to see Blizzard do well. I think they're doing great right now. And if anything, the intro to Storm Rising led me to believe that if they really, really put their mind to it, they could make a hell of a movie out of this. And I'd love to see it. So anyway, let's move on to the professional realm for a little bit. So we're going to be talking about some OWL and Contenders a little bit too. Now, honestly, it takes us a couple weeks to record an episode. It takes us 2 hours technically, but it takes us a couple weeks to gather information together and find time to sit down and create this for you. So a lot has happened in that time frame. So we're going to cover some things more in depth and some things less in depth, but I did want to try and like at least call out a lot of the changes that have occurred. So we'll start in OWL. Because there's been a lot of sort of really interesting things going on in OWL recently. The first of which I think is really prevalent and also kind of poignant at this time. And that is that Effect retired from the Dallas Fuel. He will remain as a streamer. He did point that out later. But it was more so the manner in which Effect retired. Because there was a lot of like talk about Effect having some emotional things going on, like with his family, and people were like attacking his parents and shit when he was doing poorly in games, which is just really BM. Like, why would you even like? I mean, we're esports fans, guys. Let's not be like NFL fans, please. Like, there's no need to insult people's families here. People are doing their best. Chill out. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit. I can actually read the twit longer that Effect posted in concerning his retirement. It is pretty loaded, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I do want to just go over like a little bit, the first 3 paragraphs or so.
Do we want to put a trigger warning in there?
I don't know, but I think trigger warning's a bad turn of phrase for this, but
no,
yeah,
but that's actually a thing. That's actually a thing. You want to put a warning in there so that if you go through something that's too dark. Yeah.
So it's heads up, it's
that's
a little
the actual
dark.
Term, Tom. I'm not saying
it seems inappropriate, but I will. Yeah, in fairness, just
I'm not using it as a meme.
This is a little sad. Term. This is a little sad. So, Effect said, I always carry a sense of shame around with me, but some days that feeling of shame gets so severe that I get strong urges to kill myself. I should just forget about it and do productive, positive things, but I can't do it. I get filled with endless negative thoughts and the idea that everything is meaningless. My life is a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much I try to fill it and fill it again, my greed knows no limits. And I found something to temporarily block the hole, but the weight grows bit by bit until it eventually breaks apart and it spills out again. The first time I felt this sense of shame was when I was a child and watched a movie. It was an amazingly cool, fantastical movie, but in comparison, I felt so small. I was so envious of the dazzling, bright main character, and I wanted to become like them. And that was when, for the first time, I thought to myself, should I die instead of continuing to live like this? I checked on the internet and that movie came out 10 years ago, so I was 13 years old back then. When my family exited the theater, amazed at the CG, I was thinking about suicide. And that's where I'm going to leave that one there, because it does get dark, and if you want to read the whole thing, of course it will be connected to the podcast in the comments. You'll see, I put all the sources that we get this from in the comments, so you can read it if you want to. But like Tigrato said, definitely trigger warning on that. So, so Effect, going through some shit, it would appear. It has been for a long time, but this isn't the first we've heard of folks having, let's say, stress-related issues in professional esports, and also Overwatch very prominently as well. People saying their schedules are too crazy, the demands are too high, the fans are too crazy. What's your kind of take on this whole kind of like weird atmosphere around the league and burnout specifically going on right now?
See, I think it's something that a lot of people aren't thinking about. Well, they're starting to now, but here's the thing. The gaming community can be really toxic. Yeah. Both players and fans. There's not like a whole lot of toxic players, but the fans especially. Like you see, whenever I see a team's loss tweet, the first things I see in the responses are people complaining, like, you guys suck, blah, 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 blah. It's like the first people who respond to those tweets are just there to trash their team. And some people go after players, and it's just ridiculous. And people aren't thinking about the mental impact, like, of the schedules, of the constant berating, because, yeah, sure, you can say, hey, just let it go. But some people can't do that so easily. And if your results are continuously just not where you want them to be, it's going to eat away at your mind. And people just aren't thinking about these things. They're not thinking about how they're thinking, oh, these people are playing games, they're having the time of their life. No, they're doing a job. It's like a sport. They're wanting to perform better. They're pushing themselves to get a certain result, blah, 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 blah.
Their livelihoods quite literally depend on them doing well in a video game.
They're getting paid to do this. This is their job. And people forget that. And it stresses people out. Anyone gets stressed out at their job, even if they love it. I get stressed out at my new job, and I love it. I haven't gotten too stressed out by it, but still, it's a thing that happens. And people aren't thinking about it. People are starting to think about it now, that some of these players that have been known for a long time, since before Overwatch League, are starting to retire, because some of them, because of just they're getting older and they just can't do it anymore, or the mental.
I think DeFran was kind of in that camp of like someone that wanted to try it for a while, and he was like, "Nope, can't do this all the time." He's too much of a happy-go-lucky guy. Oh yeah. And the way to kind of look at it as well from perspective. I mean, in the case like Effect is, I would say Effect is a side, the worst possible amalgamation of what that can be like, because I don't think that every single player that's like in this kind of stressful environment right now is necessarily contemplating suicide, but I do think that it's definitely something to consider in the fact that you and your friends, and me and my friends, we all play Overwatch, we all get tilted, we all have bad times playing the game. It will affect your mood to an extent. Now magnify that by 1 million people watching, and all these people that just expect you to do well because you're signed by Overwatch League. Why wouldn't you be the best in the world? And then combine that with the stress of like not seeing your family all the time, being stuck in a small room skirmishing for 8 hours a day, like all this kind of stuff. And I think it just compiles and compiles and compiles. I mean, there's definitely a sense, I would imagine, of a lot of players getting burnout just with the game itself, let alone the lifestyle around the game. I mean, they have to literally know this game inside and out. And whenever anything changes, they have to adapt to that as fast as possible. If, they've lost 7 games in a row, like Valiant did, then that's got to fuck with you mentally. That's got to be like, I mean, Shanghai Dragons, God knows how they managed to not lose it after the 42 straight losses?
Well, they replaced most of their roster.
They did, but can you imagine how that previous roster felt about their abilities going into that? Like, that would break a person. So, yeah. So, I mean, this is like more of an extreme end of things just because of affects like personal situations. But I will say I'm happy for him that he is choosing to do this. Streaming is a far less stressful life. I mean, that's not to say there's not stress that comes with it, but it's,
I can attest to that.
but it is far less stressful than what he was doing before. So I guess best of luck to you, Effect. I really hope that that you can get to a better place and realize that things can get better and that you're making the best decision for you. And I think like the majority of people, whether they're Fuel or Effect fans or not, are happy for you that you're making this decision and not doing the other thing. So so I just wanted to start with this because it's such a prevalent issue right now in the Overwatch League, and I think that Effect is like the most extreme version of it. So anyway, moving on a little bit, Bishu puts on a 2-way contract with the Gladiator Legion. So Bishu is going to be filling a little bit for the academy team there. It's kind of exciting. Do you like follow Bishu much as a player? Or?
No, but I like him because he's a bit like I'm 37. Is that he's actually Korean background, but he lives in Canada. I don't know if he still lives in Canada, but he's got this mixed background, and I love that. I love the players like that, and you get a lot of them in BC, especially where I was born. That's where I'm 37 lives as well. He lives in BC. But he's a really good guy. And we haven't been seeing him in Gladiators, so it's good to see him play. I know he had some health issues, I believe, going on. But it will be good to see him playing with Gladiators Legion. I think he's going to be kind of leading them.
He is going to be, it says here, the Gladiators are excited to announce it's starting on April 8th. LA Gladiators flex tank Bishu will temporarily be joining Gladiators Legion under a 2-way contract to support the current roster, while Gladiators Legion actively searches for a new full-time flex tank. So, yeah, I don't know if that's kind of like them saying he's probably going to end up staying on the Legion team, but they might need to pull him up to the big leagues once in a while. I'm not sure exactly kind of what the background to that is, but
I don't know what it is because it's not that Bishu's not a good player. I think it's more because he's been having I think he was having health issues, and this, like, playing Contenders is a bit less strenuous, I suppose, and it lets him deal with his other stuff.
Yeah. And still keep up like practice with high level.
And still keep
Overwatch.
up practice.
Yeah.
But they do have Void right now, who's also a very good flex tank.
Void is fucking legit. Void is one of my low-key favorite
We'll see
players.
how this plays out.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And Gladiators have been crushing it lately anyway. Like, they've been doing fantastic, so we're not worried about that too much. All right, so here's some weird stuff that went on this week. There's a lot more kind of, let's say, celebrity interest in esports lately, which is proving to kind of expand things in an interesting direction. So Toronto Defiant recently signed, and I say signed loosely, not as a player, but as an ambassador, The Weeknd, the singer The Weeknd. Weird name for a singer, but so Toronto native The Weeknd is joining the Toronto Defiant family. We're excited to have The Weeknd as an investor, collaborator, and global ambassador. And they have pictures of him like playing, console Overwatch, but like all sort of stoked and pumped to be part of Toronto Defiant, which I think is really cool. Like it's, I like that a lot. And then alongside The Weeknd, we also have, and this is now we're getting into some serious territory. Gen G, The parent company of Overwatch League team Seoul Dynasty, an esports team in League of Legends, LCK, Fortnite, Clash Royale, and others, has raised $46 million in financing from actor Will Smith, Japanese soccer star Kazuki Honda, Honda Dreamers Fund, Los Angeles Clippers minority owner Dennis Wong, and others. But let's be honest, Big Willie style is the only one we care about there. So Will Smith is also donating to, I mean, this is more like general esports, not specifically Overwatch, but they do own Seoul Dynasty. So Will Smith donating to Seoul Dynasty, and The Weeknd as an ambassador for Toronto Defiant. Where do we sit on that?
I think no matter what you think about the people investing, because I know some people don't like The Weeknd. I don't really know that much about him, so
He's
I have a neutral opinion.
Yeah, he's fine.
But I think it's a good thing. Hey, The Weeknd, Toronto native, supporting the Toronto team. That's going to be good for building esports in that region. Will Smith supporting esports at all. That's going to be good for normalizing esports, because a lot of people, and I talked about this last week, I'm going to talk about it until people stop being idiots about it, but they just think that esports players are just people living in their mother's basement playing video games.
Yeah.
That's not how it is. For us to see a lot more high quality players, not that there's not high quality players from this side of the world, we need to normalize esports, and this will help bring that to fruition. So we're going to see players more able to practice and get better and do their thing without stressing about, living.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good thing, and it will normalize it, and people will be like, oh, hey, esports is actually a thing. Because if you think about it, it's not that different than playing football. You're playing a game. Yeah, there might not be as much of a physical aspect, but you're playing a game for your living.
You know what really cracks me up is a lot of the arguments that go against esports are so redundant. It's just like, why wouldn't you want to play the game instead of watching people play the game? Oh, and you like NFL and NHL and
MLS?
Do
you go out and play hockey?
Do you go out and play? No, you don't. You watch your team and you cheer them on. That's the excitement of it. And it's not like there's not a scoring system. There is a scoring system. It is a sport. It's just not a physical beat each other up sport. It's a mind game strategic sport, much the same as chess or poker or anything else along those lines.
There's World Series poker on the sports networks. People don't complain about that. There's darts even. I saw freaking darts.
If darts counts, Overwatch counts. That's what I'm saying. It's literally the same thing. Flick the mouse, flick the dart. Flick the mouse, flick the dart. It's the same thing. All right.
I was actually watching that darts match and it was interesting. Darts is nothing wrong with watching darts.
Coming from an Englishman, darts to me is like, there's so many people I know in real life that love it. I always hated it. It's such a stupid thing.
I just like throwing sharp objects. I mean,
can't argue with that. Can't argue with that. Alrighty, so that's kind of cool news. I like it. I do think esports is definitely one of the fastest growing, I guess sports, or even like just cultural phenomenons. I think it's one of the fastest growing, and I think especially when these esports stadiums start popping up for Overwatch League, we're going to see a serious boon in people getting sort of attached to it. I really hope so. Anyway, because I think the other thing to remember is, and here's the weird kind of paradox of esports and people getting into esports. When you're watching Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, Fortnite, whatever, you kind of know what's going on. Maybe not in Fortnite because it's just lots of building and shooting, but with most of the traditional FPS games, you kind of know what's going on. Trying to introduce people to things like League of Legends, Dota, and even Overwatch to an extent, a lot harder if you've not played it. Like when before I played Overwatch, I had seen some professional Overwatch. Before I played Counter-Strike, I had seen some professional Counter-Strike. I could follow Counter-Strike very simply. It's very, very easy. 5 players here, 5 players there. That one team plants the bomb, the other team tries to defuse it, kill everything, and you win. It's a really simple concept. With Overwatch, though, it's such a blast of just vision when you're watching it from from an outside perspective. The first time I tried to follow it, I was watching with Keegan, and I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? There's like monkeys, and there's electric, and there's, you know, I was like, I don't know, like, what's happening, so it's really hard for me to enjoy it. And then, like, of course, once I played it, I suddenly understood everything. And that's the kind of, I think that's a weird barrier point with esports, is that, like, you can watch, like, an NFL game or an NHL game or whatever, and pretty much pick it up pretty simply, because the rules, despite, like, some of the more difficult rules, but the basic gameplay is really easy to follow just by watching and someone saying, this team has to score that ball in that basket or whatever. But trying to explain the strategy behind a game like League or Overwatch, that's a whole other kettle of fish. That's the one thing I think will be the hardest to overcome, because it seems like right now you kind of have to play it to understand it, at least to some extent. But they are doing a good job of trying to bring that to the masses with the explanations that they've been sort of cutting into the larger live shows. Like, this is how you do escort, you know.
See, and I've actually seen, and I don't think it'll be too big of a problem, because I've heard a lot of people talking, like, their parents see it on the TV, and they know that their child has watched this, so they ask their child, like, what's going on? It's like, I think someone tweeted during the match, like, without them explaining it, their mother was like, oh, that team has more special moves, ultimates, than the other team. They have an advantage. And they're like, oh, you actually get it. So it can.
Mother, are you talking about ult economy right now?
Exactly. But
Wow.
yeah, a lot of people are willing to learn. My mother even thinks, like, I don't know if she'd actually watch Overwatch League, but she was watching the news the other day. She's like, oh, hey, that's Overwatch League. You should, there's a news story about it on the TV, and called me upstairs.
Right. There you go.
When she was visiting, and I'm like, there are people open to it, and I think they will find it interesting. I think I could, like, if it was on the TV, my mother would watch it, and I'd explain it to her, and she'd actually understand it. But
and also, the one thing that I will say for Overwatch over some of those other games, like, League is very kind of like anime-esque, but Overwatch does have the cutesy factor. It does have the Disney factor. Like, it's not just like Call of Duty where someone's running around gunning people down. Like, you know, oh, look, there's a fucking hamster in a rolling ball, and he's about to spin around this circle a bunch of times. You know, there's like this certain element of, like, the characters are like superheroes, are a little bit more relatable, and they're so marketable. They're so marketable, which I think Blizzard knew what they were doing when they created some of these guys. But so I think that'll help, definitely. But alrighty, moving on. Washington Justice General Manager Kate Mitchell to retire after Stage 2. Bit of shocking news there coming out from the Washington Justice, but to be honest,
another mental game thing.
Yeah, I mean, they've just been all over the place, the Justice, with what they have going on. Speaking of which, San Francisco Shock are losing Sleepy, and he's going to Washington Justice. So there's something else going on there. Which is justice-based. So, yeah, I mean, I think of all the teams in the league right now that are doing a lot of kind of shuffling around and trying to find themselves, Justice are doing the most of it. That being said, they kind of have to, because they're in a weird spot right now where they're always so close. Like, they always have some really great, like, moments, but they can't quite, like, see it all the way through. They only have... I know they had that one win at the end of Stage 1. Have they had any wins this stage? I honestly haven't been paying attention to their games.
I don't think they've won this stage yet.
I don't think so either.
Let me just check it quickly.
Yeah.
But I know they faced Valiant and lost. So
yeah,
not that Valiant are looking a bit better this stage. I think I haven't actually questioned their matches.
Yeah, Valiant are looking a lot better.
But
so yeah,
let's see. This stage they've had no wins, Washington.
Yeah. So they need to shake something up, and it looks like they're kind of trying to do that. Sleepy is legit like a great player as well, so that should help. And they have Arc now, and so it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
They have Arc, they have Jonas. Some people, I don't know if it's actually serious or not, but some people were like, oh, maybe Sabe Yolby will go to Justice too, because he's not being played. But I don't think that's the situation. Yeah. I think once the meta switches, we'll be seeing Sabe Yolby in NYXL again.
He was like the only thing people talked about a lot in the original season.
He's like the only players on NYXL I actually still like. I really like Sabe Yolby. I kind of want a jersey of his.
The last of the owl-based kind of teams moving around news, anyway, is the LA Valiant announced Promise is their new assistant coach. Promise, solid background in Overwatch. Valiant, again, another team that definitely needed to shake it up a little bit. So Promise is moving over there and becoming their new coach. Now, I'm going to run through this next lot lot a little faster. We will get back to a little bit more OWL towards the end here, but there's a lot of stuff that happened in Contenders. Now, if you're just kind of like, if you're just getting into Overwatch League, and I know that the people that listen to this podcast span a wide variety of just like people that like the game, people that like OWL. Some of you, I assume, know and like Contenders as well. If you don't know, Contenders is basically like the minor league Overwatch League kind of
Tier
thing.
2.
Tier 2 is the official
A lot of people
term.
call it T2.
T2. So basically, these are the players that are kind of, they're not quite OWL level, but they're working towards it, and the more they win, the more likely they are to show up at some point. So, for example, one of the most famous T2 teams was Runaways, and Runaways turned into Vancouver. So it's, it's not, and that was just because they expanded the rosters out, but it's not unheard of for these guys to get jumped up to the big leagues. And the opposite, as we saw with Bishu too, like there will be some players that may be underperforming, or they don't feel good, or they just need that moral support of an OWL player on their league, and they'll go and play for that tier as well. Fusions was, a guy that was on a two-way contract, and I think now that's kind of leaning more towards like full-time Boston.
I think he actually might be just full-time.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
but
I actually still don't know what the deal of his contract is.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does. I don't think even he knows. But so anyway, just a brief overview of Contenders if you are unfamiliar. So a lot of different swaps went on there. I'm not going to go into detail because this podcast can only be so long, but I'm going to run through them for people that do follow Contenders. So Energy Esports adds Moira and releases Azire. Leaked Up leaves Team CC. Boston Academy finally releases Asking. Fearless transferring to Team CC. Square One releases Vowels and Applewood. Speedily joins XL Academy. Sharik joins the Montreal Rebellion. And a young and beautiful signed Beto. The other sort of more interesting pieces of news to come out of Contenders I wanted to focus on for a minute is that finally, and trust me, this is, I'm not happy about it. The Fusion University team had their 30-game win streak broken by Mayhem Academy of all teams. So, because those
Mayhem
guys
Academy are better than Mayhem.
Yeah, like legit. Like, yeah.
They have Mangachu, good Canadian boy.
Yeah. Good to see Mangachu. But yeah, so Fusion Uni had this incredible run where they were basically I guess MYXL of the
they were the
Contenders.
Titans of
Titans, yeah. And
they literally had not lost at all.
They're a solid team. A lot of people really big fans of Beast Halo, asking for him to come up to the big leagues, potentially to replace Sato. I don't know.
Fusion University should just replace most of the Fusion players, let's be honest.
The way they're playing lately, there seems to be a little bit of weird toxicity on Fusion that a lot of us kind of can sense, but we're not sure. So.
Side note on that, when they beat Outlaws, if you were looking at their face cams, you would think they were losing 4-0. They did not look happy at all. I saw Sato smile once. That was the only person on the team I saw smiling that whole match. There's something wrong with that roster, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's got to be.
But anyway, it's a side note.
Alrighty. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a roundup on Contenders news for you. A couple shuffles around, and of course, the Fusion lost their undefeated run. So, if you're interested in Contenders, do support it. Tier 2 needs support. Tier 3 needs support also. That's, when you're getting into, high schools and stuff. But yeah, Tier 2, it is available on Twitch, just the same as Overwatch League. They have, it's Overwatch Contenders, I believe, is the Twitch thing. And you'll know it because instead of the famous Tracer logo, you get a Genji logo instead. And it's, green and black. So that's how to spot it.
It basically always looks like the Outlaws are playing.
And it's always a good game because these people are hungry. They are hungry to get better. So if you're one of those folks that watches basketball, but then also watches college basketball because you want to see which players are going to get pulled up, this is kind of the same thing, just to throw that out there. Alrighty, so let's go back to Overwatch for a little bit before we get into the personal focus and the main hero. So let's talk about Dallas Fuel's Homestead game. So Dallas Fuel, they do have their stadium up and ready to roll. I believe it was not... Is it
Not
homestand?
homestead. It's homestand. I have no idea what the fuck it's supposed to mean, but it's homestand. I think it sounds stupid.
You're totally right. I don't know where I got homestead from. I kind of like that though. It sounded.
That's probably what it should have been.
It sounded
I have
better.
no idea what homestand is supposed to mean.
Homestand doesn't
honestly.
make any sense. So anyway, the homestand weekend. I believe it's Dallas versus Houston. I think.
Well, that's the big thing, but there are other teams playing. Like,
really?
Let me see who's going.
Yeah, please do. While you're looking that up.
Homestand weekend, the match lineup is Paris versus London, Hangzhou versus Chengdu, Houston versus Seoul, Valiant versus Dallas, Hangzhou versus Paris.
It's a lot of games.
Chengdu versus London, Seoul versus Valiant, and then Dallas versus Houston.
Wow.
So there's 8 matchups. I believe 4 teams.
Jesus.
No, not 4 teams. That would be stupid. That's not 4 teams. 8.
Is it going over?
8 teams.
It's going
8
over
teams,
2 days,
8
though,
matches.
right? It's going over 2 days.
2 days.
I was going to say, that's a lot of games for one
So a
day.
lot of people won't have their teams playing this week.
Right.
I think, how many teams are in the league now? 60, and so only half the teams.
Are they filming for Overwatch League from Dallas? They might.
Yeah, they're going. Oh, the matches are happening in
whole
Dallas.
kit and caboodle, right? They got Mitch and everyone out there. Okay.
I think they're going to have everyone out there except for the teams that aren't playing. Some of the players might go to it. I'm pretty sure.
So sold out as well for the Homestead weekend. That's great news. That's when we talk about expanding Overwatch in North America and outside North America. These home games are going to be legitimately one of the best moves that any esports organization has ever made. If it works to fruition,
this is like the Olympic test event.
Yeah,
equivalent.
Yeah. I mean, we know that.
Does the concept work?
We talked about Philly building their stadium. Luckily, Dallas already has one they can use, but they're going to do the first of, and in 2020, they're moving all over to this. So I'm excited. I honestly, as much as I really, I'm not a Fuel fan, no offense, Fuel. I like some of your players. I just don't like the cockiness. I do wish them the best, and I hope this goes really well, because if this goes well for Dallas, it goes well for Overwatch League in general and esports in general as a byproduct. So let's talk about 2 of the weirdest things that happened in Overwatch League, and they both revolve around the Atlanta Reign. So the Atlanta Reign this week had a stunning pulse bomb that was dropped. It was
last week, technically.
Last week, yeah. So it's one of those things where, I don't necessarily like to talk about moves that happened that I was a fan of that much, but I will say that this was pretty impressive. So Erster on Eichenwald lands a 4K pulse bomb, followed by directly killing the 2 remaining members of the team
without a grab.
Without a grab, just old school Tracer fashion, and basically nailed all 6 players of Washington Justice within about 5 seconds. Incredible play, and I think Erster, because Erster's kind of usually in brig jail, I think that was a stunning moment where you get to remember what Overwatch can be when it's at the height of its kind of
It's just good to see Tracer do something again. Yeah, and Tracer has been coming back. You see Tracer sometimes
once in a while.
Busan. Yeah. We saw it obviously on Eichenwald. So there are hints that people are trying to break goats.
Yeah.
But it's just not
I love it.
a constant thing yet.
I mean, it's kind of interesting how it's almost rather than just going goats for every single stage of every single map right now, it's almost like there's certain stages in a map where people feel like they have to run goats, but then there's certain stages where they're like, let's try something new. And those are the most exciting to me. I love seeing all the Ferras in the league. I love seeing, Batiste get some play. It's exciting. So yeah, that pulse bomb, again, you can see the link directly to the Twitch clip in the description below. But honestly, if you just type in Erster hits massive pulse bomb, you'll probably find it. And then Atlanta went on after that to just go ahead and fucking beat NYXL, which just blows my mind, because Atlanta have been literally, since DeFran has gone, one of the shakiest teams in the entire league. And then they just fucking blew NYXL out of the water.
This close to 4-0.
This close.
NYXL pretty much... it's no guarantee that they would have lost the map had they lost this fight, but they basically won that last fight just because Atlanta couldn't contest. It was like a half C9.
Yeah.
And it was mind blowing that that's how they won a map.
Yeah.
They actually just got outplayed. I watched Kings Row. Atlanta was solid on Kings Row. They did a really good job. I didn't watch the first 2 maps.
What do you attest it to? Because a lot of the casters, and I'm kind of the same opinion, a lot of people believe that NYXL tend to play a slower game. Like, they're very tight-knit. They don't get that aggressive. They wait for mistakes. That's how NYXL plays. As soon as someone is out of position, pounce. But Atlanta were hyper-aggressive. Like like Vancouver aggressive. Do you think that has more to say in how they managed to win that, or do you think it was because they did get a little bit unconventional with some of their compositions? Like they legitimately played Mei like normally for a long time on Anubis. Like they were blocking off the Rhine from retreating. They were like landing blizzards. It was amazing. It was no pun intended. It was my one of my favorite moments I've ever had watching Overwatch League. What do you attest the victory to?
Here's the thing with NYXL, and this is my honest opinion of them. They're a really good team, very good mechanically, but they're mostly only good at what they plan for. Once they're off their plan, and we saw this in playoffs last year against Fusion, as soon as they're off their plan, they don't look very strong.
Right.
Like, you throw them off their plan. And also, if you kill Jonak first, you probably win the fight. That's another thing. If you kill Jonak first, their plan is to keep Jonak alive.
So many clutch kills from Dogman. Now, I've not been Dogman's biggest fan since he joined the league. I did not like the BM attitude he came in with. I do think he's an excellent Zen player and an Ana player. But that dude had so many clutch kills that just ended fights before they started. There was fights with NY where he would take out Jonak first, and then literally no ults were needed on the half of the Rain. And I think when you snowball in those effects, when you're like, okay, Rain could use a couple ultimates to to seal this, but then NYXL are going to have the ult economy coming back. They're probably going to flip it. But when you can win a fight just by a pick, and you still have those ultimates when NY come back, and then you're more likely to, stall out the point for longer or whatever it might be. So I think Dogman came in clutch with a lot of that. I do have to give him a lot of respect for how he played that. And I think he did a great job of keeping Jonak somewhat ineffective in his team.
It will be interesting to see, though, because Atlanta's next match... Firstly, Atlanta beat NYXL, and then they lost... They lost to Guangzhou Charge in the next match after that.
Yeah, no,
so
I'm
who
not
knows
mad
what's happening?
about that. Guangzhou Charge needed a win.
They're an unpredictable, exciting team.
Yeah.
I like seeing teams that don't just necessarily destroy all the time. But Atlanta Reign faces NYXL again. This stage because the scheduling this year is shit. And people played teams twice, and NYXL also faced Fusion twice this stage.
I say we played them twice. I say we, Fusion. Well, I'm a Fusion fan, in case you guys didn't know. James has migrated from Fusion to Boston. So in case you're wondering, when
Fusion
we say our
replaces
team,
some of their players.
Yeah. They do need to. We need to do some work, boys. That's what we're saying. You can go from winning to NYX. You know what though? That is just the nature of the fucking game so far. Like, it's just been so crazy how many people have beaten top tier teams and then lost to bottom tier teams immediately after. Like, even at the beginning of the stage, the very, very first stage, Fusion beats London, last year's champions, and then loses to Mayhem, who is largely regarded as one of the worst teams in the league right now. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this game half the time, but
And also, it's important to note that Reign is the first team to lose to Valiant this year. Yeah. So it's such a mixed bag of results, and it's exciting to watch teams like that. I'm actually going to start following Reign a bit closer now, because not just because of the NYXL victory, but they seem like a very exciting team, and they don't have Defran anymore, so I can actually like them.
Baby Bay is a decent player to watch. I'm excited with his current switch over to there. Okay, cool. That's all your Al roundup. If you're not a big fan of Overwatch League or Contenders, I do apologize for the last 40 minutes or so. It is part of our podcast. We do like to dig into it. We're huge fans of the competitive scene, and we want to try and push it as far as possible, especially into newer people to the game. And that's what this podcast is designed to capture. We want people that cosplay and play the game and really love the game, but maybe don't know so much about the pro side of it, or maybe need to dig deeper into hero tips or whatever. So that's why we made this. So we will be talking about it, and hopefully we'll help you follow along with some of the more interesting movements in that side of things. Cool. personal focus this week. I've come up with a doozy of a question, 2 questions that I was just kind of like, they just kind of hit me, and I was like, I was just thinking about it. Like, we've done a lot of like favorite character, worst favorite character, character you autopilot on, character you don't, that kind of stuff. So what I decided to do this week was focused on abilities and ultimates directly. So what I want from you, sir, is 2 things. Number 1, the single worst ability and or ultimate in the game, followed by the single best ability and or ultimate in the game. And go, I guess.
See, the thing is, with ultimates or with worst, I seriously think it might be, and just for the fact that, yeah, it is useful, but it's really underwhelming, is Arisa's bongo. Yeah. It can be useful in some situations, but honestly, even when I use it, I feel it's really underwhelming.
Yeah.
It's just, you put it down and nothing really happens. You, like...
We talked about
maybe
this
get some
in
extra
our
damage that you wouldn't have
episode
otherwise.
A little bit.
But I think it might be also a case of just teammates not using it as well. So that's just from my experience. It just seems like, yeah, cool. I used the bongo. It made noise.
It does make noise.
It doesn't
there's
feel
lightning coming from it, which is always nice.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it's just whatever.
Alrighty. What about abilities? Do you have any abilities you think are lackluster?
Abilities.
It's hard, isn't it? It took me a long time to come to any decisions.
I can't really think of an ability that's really lackluster.
We can come back to it if you want.
No, I don't think I'll ever be able to come up with one. But
right. So mostly just.
I mean, I guess micro missiles are kind of disappointing, but I still find them pretty useful. So that's what I'm gonna say. Just for the sake of saying something, like the micro missiles are just kind of like tickle.
You feel like they should be more powerful?
Maybe, but I don't really care. I use it just for extra damage. It's kind of like how I use when I'm healing as Baptiste, how I use it almost looks like Abedip, but his regenerative burst, I actually use it to get extra healing on people all the time. So it's kind of just like extra damage. Yeah. That's what it is.
I got you. You know, it's weird. Like, whenever I'm playing Moira against a diva, I used to be really nervous. Like, oh, I'm going to lose this one-on-one. Now that her, like, armor stuff has been buffed a little bit, like she can drain armor faster, even if a diva is micro-missiling me in the face, I'm less scared. Like, I feel like I can 1v1 a diva.
Almost
it
like
just counterbalances
overtakes
it. And you just fade around the back, and it takes diva forever to like chunk her little mech around to try and find you. And I feel like I think so I can
even
go with
for
that.
Me, and I have really good tracking. It's hard for me to fight a Moira as diva.
Right?
It's like a 50-50 win rate.
And you can't D-matrix that shit, so you're getting your life stole whether you like it or not.
It depends on who sees who first, really.
I'm gonna go with because I'm gonna jump in on the worst before we go to best. I'm going to jump in on the worst. I'm going to say one of 2 things. I think Venom Mine is pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not that it doesn't have its uses. It is good as an early warning mechanism. It definitely does put down, it puts down 75 damage, but, it's also like an overtime thing, so the healers could heal it up before. Like, if it was, like, instantaneous, that would be a bunch of, like, insta-kills. It's just like poison. And then it's kind of awkward to place sometimes, at a distance anyway. And then and I was gonna say this, but then they patched it recently. Reaper Shadow Step before the patch was the stupidest ability in the game, I think, because yes, you can get to high ground or whatever, but everyone knew you were there because it took you a whole minute, not a minute, like a second and a half to materialize, but also like he made his presence very well known every single time. You would just be like casually fighting on point, and you'd hear a death comes, and you'd be like, all right, Reaper's somewhere, let's let's get out of here. And it was just so pointless as a sneaky technique. There was no shadow in that step. It was just kind of like large, bright sunlight announcement step. But they did fix it up a little bit. Now he just come out of it quicker. He can do it while jumping. So there's a little bit more of an element of surprise to it. So it's better now. But that was definitely up there as like on my worst. Ultimate-wise, I really am not a fan of Deadeye. I think it should lock on faster to make it more viable. Because the only way you land that ultimate is by coming from the craziest angle that people are not expecting you to be, not having anyone on your team that has the ability to either one-shot you or dematrix you or boop you or the million other ways to get rid of it. Like, usually a McCree is not going to get hardly any value out of that. Maybe one kill. Occasionally you get a good one, but I think overall, and they have buffed it, but overall it's a pretty low value ult to me, and it takes like a while to build in some instances too. So that I'm not such a fan of.
Disagree with that highly. But
okay.
Anyway,
what's your opinion on Deadeye?
Deadeye, I think it's exactly where it should be. Because if you look at like Pulse Bomb, same idea. You have to be in the right place, right time. You have to plan it out. Self-destruct, you have to be in the right place, right time, plan it out with your team. Deadeye, same thing. And it's mostly used for zoning. Like, it's not always a kill the entire team thing. It's just you have to know how to use it. That's my opinion. It's not really lackluster. They buffed it a bit recently.
Yeah, the buff was good. The buff was needed.
If your team is distracted enough by their team, you can't do anything about it often. I think it's in a decent place right now. Okay. That's my personal opinion.
I will add that since you just brought it up, Tracer's Pulse Bomb pretty underwhelming right now. It's guaranteed.
I think that's more of a meta thing, but also I think you can't. I don't know if you can kill a Bastion with Pulse Bomb right now if you stick it. It's not a guaranteed kill, which I think is stupid.
Yeah, I think I've lost you on the. Oh, there you are. Hi.
Oh, my camera just screwed up.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so now let's talk about best abilities and ultimates for the characters. So the worst ones are out of the way. The sucky ones are gone. Now, there are definitely some firm capabilities that these characters can do. Way easier to pick, I think, best than worst. So what would you say? And you could do both ultimate and ability if you want to, or you can just do ability. But what would you say is the best in the game?
I have
personally?
one for both.
Okay.
And the best ability, I would say, would be Sombra's Hack. And both because it prevents characters who are very ability heavy from doing fucking anything. And also because it gives you intel as far as how do they have ult or not. And this is a huge part of the game. Like, preventing abilities, that's a big enough deal. But sometimes if you don't know if someone has ult, and then, like, for example, if they just use it, I had a case yesterday where I was playing comp, and an enemy Reaper had just used ult like a minute ago. And I hacked him. I said, he has ult again, or he has ult. And someone's like, he just used it, though. I'm like, I am Sombra. I can see that he has ult again. And nobody would have known that otherwise. So that's a huge part. And just preventing people from getting away. Like, if you have a Doomfist attacking your backline, you can shut that guy down. He won't be able to get away. He'll just get burned. If there's a Wrecking Ball attacking your backline, he won't be able to get away. He just walks around. He's this big target. You can just burn him down. If there's a Roadhog, he won't be able to heal himself. He won't be able to hook anyone. He's just a big target that you all shoot and he gets burnt. And if there's a Mercy rezzing, you can cancel her res. If there's a Deadeye going on, you can cancel Deadeye if you're quick enough. You can cancel Moira's Coalescence. You can cancel Hog's ult. You can cancel so many things.
Just stop me from contesting the point in overtime as well, because you're canceling her Cryo Block and her Ice Wall, which is a good one.
Yeah. She's a good one against May too, as long as you keep your distance.
Yeah. I never really, because here's the thing, I'm not a Sombra player, so like, I mean, I play her a little bit, but I do think that I hate being hacked, so I can't appreciate like the other side of it, whereas it is a very powerful ability. I think, you're right up there. I think it's a misunderstood ability. I think a lot of people don't use it to its full potential, but it is super powerful.
And there's also the fact of health packs. Like, you can control the enemy's ability to push in on you and sustain themselves by hacking those health packs.
Yeah.
Like, if there's a big approach to the point that they keep using, there's a health pack there that they keep going to use, and you hack that, they're all of a sudden going to be finding themselves in difficult situations because they can't get their health back up unless it's for their healers.
Especially
So
on like ruins for Ilios, there's that one mega that's like it's like literally like it's no one's. It's just out in like all by the point.
And sometimes they'll go for it. They'll leave the fight completely to go get the health pack, and then it's not there for them, and then they're on their own for you to hack again, prevent them from getting back to their team and just taking them out of the fight.
And they're next to a ledge, so I'm usually a big fan of that. If I'm Lucio, I can be like, bye-bye, no health pack for you. So what about the ultimate then? You said you had one for both.
As far as ultimate, I want to say that the most powerful ultimate in the game is Graviton Surge. Because of its huge team kill potential. Even with, sometimes you don't even need to combo another ult with it. If you have a Break swinging into that thing, if you have a Reinhardt swinging into that thing, you can get several people down. Even without it, like Trance is a good counter to it. But if you have a Diva Bomb and you get the Reinhardt, like if the enemy team has a Reinhardt to block it and you have a Reinhardt to charge him out, you're gonna kill everyone except for the Zen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's just this huge, powerful ability. If your team capitalizes on it. That is the big part if your team capitalizes on it. But even then, even without, it doesn't always even require an ult. It just requires a little bit of follow-up.
And it also doesn't necessarily require you to nail all 6 people. You can get the most important person on their side and then burn them down.
And it's the most important. I wouldn't recommend it all the time, but if it's like a main tank or a healer, or someone really important, it could be useful. If it gets 2, even better. If it gets 3, wow. If it gets 4, it's just it's better the more that you get. But even you can get value out of even a single person if it's the right one.
I think a lot of times in Overwatch League they'll use it on the enemy Zarya, because that's where all the damage is coming from in goats. So like if you can get a solo Zarya grab and burn her down, then like you basically won the fight anyway, which I think is and you know, whether you get 6 or 1, I think it's kind of cool that you can do that. But yeah, it definitely it also partners well with a lot of other ultimates. Like I've seen it partnered with everything from obviously the Diva Bomb situation in goats right now to something as simple as Torb's Molten Core. Like they'll be hovering in the air, Torb will put his Molten Core underneath, and they all just go poof right into the Molten Core when it's over, which is I'm a big fan of that combo. Yeah.
And really, the only thing that can really get rid of it is Diva's Matrix. So if the enemy team is a Diva and you demech her, just make sure that she doesn't have Matrix or can't Matrix.
I mean, honestly, half the time, it's so difficult to get
it's
that
really
anyway that it's like, you know, you're probably going to be fine. But yeah, no, unless you're in Overwatch League. But yeah, no, that's a good call out. Good call out. Grav is definitely...
You're against Fury.
Yeah. Yum yum yum. Alrighty, so for me, I got some kind of weird ones. So I actually think the best ability in the game is Fade. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I know there's plenty of other like DPS or you know, tank based abilities that are like Defense Matrix is legitimately up there in the list of like my favorite abilities, but Fade is undeniably for me my favorite, which is why I'm saying it's the best, because it makes you damn near unkillable. Like if you can utilize Fade in a correct manner, you can not only obviously very quickly escape an engagement without taking any damage whatsoever, you can also flank very quickly. Like you can Fade, like for example, let's go with Paris, right? There's that one choke at the beginning where you really don't want anyone to be able to hit you while you're moving. You can literally just Fade right around the corner and they don't even know you're there, or from the little side area on the right all the way into the room on the left. There's lots of like, it's almost like Shadow Step without the hassle. You know, it doesn't go quite as far, but you can survive pretty much any ultimate in the game, including Graviton Surge. You know, you can Fade out of Graviton. If a Diva Bomb is in your face and you can't do anything about it, you can time your Fade to basically be vapor when the bomb goes off and it doesn't kill you. You can Fade out of any zoning ult like Maze Freeze or Molten Core or anything like that. You can definitely time a Fade to avoid a shatter if you see one coming. I think as a defensive ability, it's the strongest in the game because it makes Moira very much like I said, super hard to kill, super slippery. And if your main healer is slippery and hard to kill, then it's likely the rest of your team's going to stay alive for longer. So that's why I think that Fade, personally, to me, is one of the best abilities in the game.
Considering your explanation, I won't even contest that. That's actually a good point.
Thank you.
The other thing that's really nice about Fade, if you're really good at it, and this is a nice little trick, is that you can fake people out with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because Fade does actually show, it kind of shows which direction you go, but if you go one direction and immediately go the other, they're going to be so confused and be like, where the fuck did she go?
The other things are like Doomfist punches, Genji slashes. Like, if you know it's coming, I mean, let's be honest, Doomfist is like the most obvious thing in the world. He's like, it takes him forever to line that up when he's pulling back. You know he's coming, you can just wait for it, you just go and just fade right through it. Yeah, so I'm really a fan of that. Also for chasing after kills, you shouldn't use it to chase after kills, but if you know most of the enemy team is dead and there's that one escaping like asshole, like let's say Zarya is escaping with charge and you really need to finish her off, you can catch up with her pretty quickly with a Fade. So yeah, Fade is my favorite ability in the game and what I think is one of the most powerful and underrated abilities in the game. As far as ultimates go, it's tough. Like, it really is. There's so many good ones. I don't think there's necessarily any that I would consider to be like just indefensibly incredible. I think one of my favorites is Shatter, and I'll explain why. Even though Shatter is very easily blocked simply by having a shield, if you can get past that, if you can get past the shield, or you can maneuver like to the side of the shield or burn the shield or whatever, you're guaranteed to hit people to the floor. And again, kind of like Graviton, you do kind of need some follow-up, but Ryan is also quite capable of fucking people up by himself too, if you're close enough. So you can just throw out a Fire Strike, swing, and then charge at the end. And the thing that I really like about Shatter is that it's a guaranteed team fight win, but it charges fast as shit. Like, if you're like half decent with your Fire Strikes, you should have one every fight. Like, it's, I don't know, I just think that even though it may not be considered to be one of the most powerful abilities in the game, the fact that it's such an easy team fight win and that it charges at the rate that it does, I think makes it almost overpowered to an extent, you know, aside from the fact that you have to avoid a shield. That's pretty much it. Thoughts?
Shatter was actually another one that was high on my list. It's probably second or third, because EMP's also up there, but again, it's another follow-up. All those ones that are like follow-up ones, they're really powerful, but Shatter is definitely up there. And especially like when I played Ryan a bit yesterday in comp and with a team, which is really nice. And I had a massive Shatter that it put the team on the floor, and Hanzo actually happened to Dragon Strike right before I shattered. I didn't even notice that. And he shattered, he put his Dragon Strike right where the enemy team fell.
Oh gosh.
Incidentally. Yeah. So
team wipe.
He got 3, and I think I got the other. I did damage to the 3 in there, and the Dragon Strike finished them off, and I killed 2 others. Yeah. And it was just instant, within like 4 seconds. Their fight was done.
Also, much like the Sombra ability hack, it does have the ability to somewhat cancel ultimates too. So if Roadhog is chopping at you, or Moira is coalescing at you, or whatever, you know, a quick hammer down and Moira's on her ass. Although
word of caution: don't use it into Roadhog. Don't use it into Roadhog's ult.
If you're at an angle,
if he's looking at you, you're going to get pushed up into the air, and you're never going to hit the ground.
That I have learned many times. But if you're at an angle on him, then it will cancel his ult out, and many others as well. So I mean, it'll put, you know, Torbjorn on his ass. It'll put May on her ass. May will probably still
blading, if you're good.
Genji blading, really good shit. So yeah, those are my 2 that I think I would throw out there as my. They're kind of like more like my favorites than what I would consider to be the best in the game, but because of how I utilize them and how much I enjoy them, I think they are. I'm considering them the best. Cool. Alrighty. So moving on to the hero segment, and this week we did so we started off with 2 tanks, and I don't know if you guys caught the logic with that, but I was originally just going to go along the bottom of the hero screen all the way from left to right, and then James rightly pointed out that, you know, people might get sick of tanks pretty quickly, so that's why we did DPS last week with Sombra, and we decided this week to go ahead and pick a healer instead. So we have our healer of the week is Moira. We've talked about her a little bit this week with the Fade ability and all that fun stuff. So I think she is undoubtedly one of the easier characters to play in the game. But I want to go into a little bit of my personal feelings about her before I go into like her actual like the rundown on the wiki and things like that. So there's a lot of misconceptions around Moira. One of the things is that she has 100% lock-on ability that does not require any tracking whatsoever. This is a lie. If anyone ever says, you know, no aim, useless, whatever, like, that's fine. Like, you definitely have to aim way less. But if you have a Tracer blinking around you, or if you have a Doomfist jumping over you, or a Genji that's all over the place, I dare you to tell me that thing locks onto them. It does not. There is a circle. There's definitely a big circle in front of you where anywhere within that circle, if you have it kind of angled anywhere in there, it will lock onto them. But nevertheless, if they move outside of that circle, it will break the lock and they'll be fine. It's not quite as bad as Sims was, where Symmetra's old ability, where it was just like she would just...
Back in the day.
It would like bend in the air and like it was like crazy. So you do have to aim as Moira. It's more so a tracking aim though. It's more like a Zarya beam, definitely less complicated than a Zarya beam. But if you have especially squishies that are super mobile, you're tracking. You have to spin and you have to follow. You have to go up and down, and you know you have to keep them within a certain circle in order to track them down.
It's like somewhere between Winston and Zarya.
Yeah. Yeah,
you think of it.
It's a good call.
As far as beams go.
Yeah. The other thing is, and this is huge because, okay, so Moira mains are an interesting bunch. I made a video, so you want to main Moira. We make guides. I made that video. And my Moira play is a very aggressive Moira. It is not a DPS Moira. I do not purely throw out purple orbs and all that fun stuff and don't bother to heal my team. I am a duality Moira. I make decisions on the fly as to what is needed right now. And I am not afraid to throw out a purple orb if I feel like it, or to like keep my little purpley hand out there outstretched and, you know, dragging people down. But I also have large healing numbers and focus on healing as well. Those just aren't the most fun things to watch when you're making a video. So I tended to put more of the killer plays in there than the Healy plays. There is some Healy in there. I got so many comments of people going, oh, this guy's fucking DPSing the whole way through just because of how I edited it. I edited it, so I purposely made it look like that. But as you know, as playing with me, I am a very aggressive Moira, but I also put out a lot of healing as well. And I think the duality of the character is the most interesting part about her. The fact that every single thing you're doing as Moira comes down to decisions. And when you're on Reddit, and you go into the Reddit forum and you ask for advice on Moira, they're going to tell you only ever throw out healing orbs. Never throw out a purple orb unless it's the beginning of the match or you're chasing a kill. Only ever throw out healing orbs. And to be fair, the majority of the time that's correct advice. But the worst possible thing you can do outside of DPSing Moira is heal botting Moira, where you're not doing any additional damage to the enemy team whatsoever. Her ability to contribute to kills is unmatched. If anyone on your team can get any player within a couple trickles of their health, she will dead them in a second. So a lot of what my play style as Moira is, and everyone has a different style, is I do make those split-second decisions on like what is the most needed at this time, but I am also hyper-aggressive on her because it causes fear in the enemy. When Moira's locked onto you, and you hear that little like noise going on, it makes you nervous. It makes you make mistakes. You try and escape. You don't generally stand and fight. You're like, fuck, I need to get away from this beam because it's just going to lock onto me. So if nothing else, it's a good zoning technique as well because you don't want to get too close to the Moira. So that's how I play Moira, and it brings me great success most of the time. Do you play similarly, or how do you function as a Moira? Because I have played with you.
We looked at our stats the other day. They're actually very similar. So I also play more. I probably play her actually slightly even more aggressively than you do.
Yeah.
I do put up big healing numbers, but because I'm just a murderous bastard in Overwatch, like I had more final blows. My final blow stat was the one that was significantly different from yours. So it's just I like to finish off kills. But yeah, I'm again a hyper aggressive Moira, but I do not sacrifice healing at all. I actually use Coalescence most of the time to heal and damage enemies if they happen to be in front. I actually sometimes even use it as an emergency. Sometimes I'll use it on cooldown just because people... I get it really quickly. But other times I will save it. Specifically, like I think there's a grav coming. I'm gonna
I'll save it for grav.
I'm gonna move out of it and coalesce everybody.
I'll save it for grav for sure. But outside of grav, I will use it off cooldown immediately. If we're in the the middle of it, as long as my health's good, because the worst thing you can do is go into a coalescence with low health and just get picked immediately. If there's a shatter on the enemy team, I won't use it because that's the easiest way to fuck up a Moira doing that. But also. And again, this is because we're in like the hero section. Quick pro tip: before you throw out Coalescence, what should you do, James Tigrato? There's one thing you do right before you throw it out. Healing or damage, depending on what you're going to do. So yeah, so an orb, basically. So if you're planning on mostly healing, throw a healing orb out before you do it. If you're planning on mostly killing, throw a purple orb out before you do it. The additional amount that adds to it is actually really significant. Like what could have been like burning someone down to like 1 or 2 of their health, if there's a purple orb in the mix, they're all dead. So
and
that's
that actually brings me to another way that I play Moira, is that sometimes when people are low, I'll throw out the healing orb and heal them. It's, again, the same way I like to use Amp It Up for Lucio or the Regenerative Burst for Baptiste, is I don't use it just on its own all the time. I use it to compound and just quickly get someone up to health. Like, if you use that healing orb and heal at the same time, you can get a tank up really quickly, and all of a sudden, they're not in danger anymore. It's amazing the things you can do. And the same thing with damage. Like, if you have a Genji getting all up in your face, you can throw the healing orb above him so you can't deflect it, and then also steal his life, and he goes down so quick. I think that's actually why my final blow stat is very high, because I do that kind of sneaky.
Yeah, the healing orb lifesteal is definitely a great combination, especially against other Moiras. Whenever you're in a Moira 1v1, almost always the other Moira will throw a damage orb. If you throw the healing orb, you win, because healing outdoes damaging for her in a higher percentage. So that's a very quick tip. The also alongside the tipping front, throwing an orb at a slightly lower directory keeps it around longer, because it takes longer to go forward. It doesn't just go forward and shoot off. If you throw it sort of slightly towards the floor, you will get more value out of it. But the most value you're going to get out of it is using the geometry, using the map geometry. So knowing where the orb is going to bounce around. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you throw an orb and it just skies off out into nowhere. Other times, if you're in a...
Blizzard physics.
Right. If you're in a cluster, like let's say point B, Hanamura, top of the stairs, the left entrance where everyone comes in at, you throw a little healing orb in there that's just bouncing back and forth like that, your team is like good. You don't even have to heal that much when that's going on. So there's definitely a lot of finesse to her. Fade, we've talked about, is, you know, just an incredible ability that can survive so many things. And then, of course, there is Coalescence. Now, Coalescence, one of the fastest building ultimates in the entire game, if not the fastest building ultimate. I think Moira's Coalescence is almost always the first thing to pop in a fight when I'm in a team fight, whether I'm Moira or not. And Coalescence twofold, like you said, keeping your tanks up, that extra sustain should be primary focus. If you can angle yourself to take both your tanks and point it at the enemies, that's the most value you're going to get out of it, because then you're healing and damaging at the same time. But honestly, don't be afraid just to go for the backline squishies. That thing goes 30 meters or 30 yards. I can't remember how they do it in Overwatch, but you can reach the Ana in the back with that fucker, and she will die quick. Same with Mercy, same with, you know, Zen.
Mercy and Zen especially.
Yeah, because they're, you know, harder
because they
for them
can't
to
get away as quickly. Except Mercy can, but sometimes she's too... She does it too late, and she can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Also, Moira is a soft counter to Pharah, which is one of the least known things in the game, I think. Because everyone's like, we have a Pharah, go hit scan, and sometimes, yeah, you need a hit scan. If Pharah is anywhere near you as Moira, it's too late before she realizes what's going on. If you can get underneath her where she can't see you, and you're just sucking her life away, her health pool is so low, she's done. She's done. Absolutely.
And I have been known in the past that if I get sufficiently pissed off at a Pharah as Moira, I will coalesce that bitch.
Oh, yeah. That's the other fun one as well.
If she's
Coalescing.
causing enough of a problem that she's basically carrying her team and you kill her with coalescence, that's a good use of it.
Yep.
Honestly.
Why not? Good trade.
Just make sure your team isn't in need of help when you do it.
So yeah, so that's a little bit. I mean, her like usually I go into the abilities a bit more kind of like, you know, I'll say, and I will go into it a little bit here, but I did want to throw out a few like generalized tips first because you know, I am a Moira main whether I like it or not. And here's the thing, I want to be a Zen main, I want to be a Lucio main, I want to be a more intricate main than Moira because Moira's kit is so basic, but I can play her on autopilot and do very, very well. And that is the sign of someone that is basically your main character, whether you like it or not.
Just like me with Break.
Yep. So,
and to an extent, Sombra now. It's actually kind of scary how I'm almost autopiloting with her now. It's kind of terrifying.
So
anyway.
For Biotic Grasp, it is considered a beam type weapon. It does 80 health per second or 65 health over 4 seconds lingering, which means that don't just hold it and spray, folks. Burst. You don't need to hold it. If you hold it, your resources are drained, which is the worst thing about playing Moira, is managing your resources. The max range is 15 meters for that, and rate of fire 11 per second. Let's see here. Casting time 0.3 seconds. Yeah, it's pretty quick. Biotic Grasp this is for damage. For damage, 50 per second. That's not a joke. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people you can burn down really quickly in like 3-4 seconds. You do heal yourself. You have a little bit of the old Reaper lifesteal with Moira. While you're damaging people, you are healing yourself and building your resources. So that's why I say it's very important not to be a heal bot Moira. You will never have enough healing if you're a heal bot Moira. You have to damage to heal. Something a lot of people that don't play Moira don't understand about Moira. Max range for that is 20 meters. So honestly, if I'm in a group with my tanks, I'm just holding it down. I'm just hoping that someone comes close enough that I do a little bit of damage and get a little bit of resource. Like I'll heal, hold it down. Because it will, like, you can just keep it held, and as soon as something comes within, like, a line of, I guess, damage, then it will just instantly grab a hold of them. So it's a pretty useful one.
And I even use it, side note, I even use it almost a bit sometimes like Symmetra's beam, in that I actually will use it to get additional shield break. If my team doesn't need healing and there's a shield, it's not that much damage, but it's enough that sometimes it breaks the shield just fast enough for you to do something.
It can contribute. If you got really, like, a lot of the times it's a waste to use it on a shield, but if it's cracked,
if there's nothing else to do,
if there's nothing else to do or it's cracked, then why not? Infinite ammo on that, which is nice. You don't have to worry about any of that. No reloading that, which is good. The biotic orbs. So you have projectile. The damage orb is up to 200 damage over 4 seconds, 50 per second. Healing is up to 300 health over 4 seconds. That's 75 per second. 20 meters per second. The speed, 5.5 meters while tethered. What that means is while it's actually affecting someone, so healing someone or damaging someone. Max range while tethering is 5 meters. That's when it will start, shooting off again. And duration 10 seconds or until depleted. Cooldown 10 seconds on that. So a lot of Moira is basically like managing between using your hand resources and the orb resources, because when you throw that orb, you're not getting another one for 10 seconds. Get the most value out of the one that you have, and then just kind of wait out that cooldown and then decide, okay, what do we need more here? Extra damage to finish off these squishies that are rolling here that are low health, or extra healing because my team is a little bit low right now. Fade. 18.75 meters per second. That's basically what it is, right? It's real fast. 15 meters, and you can move while you're fading. So that's a really important technique to learn. Harder on PC than console, by the way. But basically, as you fade, you have the ability to choose the direction you're going, which means that if you know the maps well enough, you know how to duck inside a door backwards. You know what I mean? You can fade back and left inside a doorway just based off the knowledge of the map, which is why I think it's very powerful. And then Coalescence, beam type weapon, 70 per second damage, 140 per second healing, which is why we say focus healing, 50 per second to yourself. So the move speed is 9 meters per second. You do definitely gain a speed boost. Max ranged 30 meters. So like I said, those squishies in the back are not safe. Duration 8 seconds. So that's, and she generates it passively 1% every 4.25 seconds. Every tick you get on a damage orb will give you a percentage. That's why damage orbs are also important to build that coalescence. I will say this though, once you have coalescence, better to purely use healing orbs until you use coalescence. Because if you have your ult, you've built it up, and then you're throwing out damage orbs, unless you're killing somebody, what are you doing? You're basically feeding the enemy ultimate, the enemy healer ultimates, because your little trickle damage that's going in there probably isn't going to kill anyone, but all their healers are able to heal up your little trickle damage, and then they're getting ultimate. So typically speaking, I will stop using damage orbs unless I'm guaranteed a kill once Coalescence is up, purely because I do not want to feed the enemy healer's ult charge. So there's that. Okay, let's get into a little bit of backstory about Moira, because she is a fascinatingly evil character. Equal parts brilliant and controversial, scientist Moira O'Dearain is on the cutting edge of genetic engineering, searching for a way to rewrite the fundamental building blocks of life. Though O'Dearain will go to any lengths to make scientific breakthroughs, her work is still unknown to most of the world. But now she has been freed from all constraints. It is only a matter of time before everything changes. O'Dearain has a negative view of Overwatch, claiming that it was responsible for stifling scientific advancements for decades. She has no interest in global conquest, but is willing to work with those who might have such a goal. Her intellectual pursuits are driven by her interest in humanity. She is a geneticist first and foremost, and that's the scope of her ambition. With her flexible morals, O'Dearain prefers to focus on her research and has no patience for those who urge caution or restraint. Her right hand is heavily scarred, and it has been speculated that it is the result of experimentation or a genetic anomaly. So I won't go too much into her background, but basically she's kind of an evil scientist. She did work with Overwatch on the Blackwatch team at the request of General Reyes for a while. She was in that mission in Retribution where everything fucked up and went horribly. And she is also 100% responsible for Gabriel Reyes becoming Reaper, using some of her, let's say, scientific advancements. She's the one who gave him those abilities and made him. That's why things like Shadow Step are very similar to Fade.
I think it was partially from the augmented soldier program in the US, but she kind of built off what they did. Because I think both him and Soldier were in that program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably a lot more, too.
She kind of took it to the next level, as it were.
Oh, yeah, quite literally. She's basically, like, right now, after Overwatch disbanded, she needed funding, and she didn't really know how to get funding. So what she ended up doing was there's a scientific collective that founded the city of Oasis, which is the map Oasis. And they selected her to be the Minister of Genetics because she was such a big genetic person. But Talon have been funding her for a long time, and she actually sits on the council with Doomfist in Talon. So she has kind of one hand in being the Minister of Genetics for Oasis, one hand on being the evil queen of Talon, if you will, next to Reaper and Doomfist. So, I mean, let's make no mistake here. She's kind of evil, but she has a good side. She does have a good side, and, you know.
And she's not totally an emotionless bitch, as everyone thinks, because even like when you spawn on Oasis sometimes, and this is probably the most team indie you ever see of her, she kind of says, and almost with a tone of sadness, this is my home now as much as any other. And she almost says it with a slight sadness about it. And I thought that was very interesting. Like, she is still human. I almost feels like she tries to hide it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's like pictures of her sprays and stuff of her where you can see her like with her cats and, you know, just being a scientist and that kind of stuff. So I think she definitely went down the kind of, if Overwatch was Star Wars, which it basically is, she definitely went down the dark side when she could have gone either way, which is why she has the duality of healing and damage. My personal most mad thing about Moira that I hate the most is that her original design had her with tentacles and they took them away. And I am such a Lovecraft fan that makes me so mad because a tentacled Moira would be, she was basically Tokyo Ghoul. Like she had, her hands and legs were normal, but she had 4 tentacles coming out of her back with like grabbers and stuff. Dude, she would have been so badass. The reason why they didn't stick with that, I believe, was that they basically said they at the time they couldn't animate it. It was too much going on with it, which I think is a bullshit reason, but yeah, so I was a fan of that.
I approve of it.
There was also a time when she had like a Zarya style gun, like it was a holdy gun thing. I'm glad they landed on the hand thing. I think that works out a lot better. Where they said her silhouette became too similar to Zarya's, so they dropped that. So. Yeah, so that's Moira. I will go into a few fun kind of bits and pieces on the trivia side of things here. Give me a second to find those. Okay, so if you had to guess, how old would you say Moira is?
41.
48.
Oh shit.
It's pretty good for her
people
age,
on
right?
Overwatch don't. People on the Overwatch, they must have really long life expectancy in that fucking game. Oh my god.
Pretty good for her age, I thought. Yeah, she definitely doesn't look 48, but yeah. Anyway, so Moira is an oh god, I can't even pronounce this word. Anglicization of the Irish name Mary.
Anglicization.
Thank you. Ultimately derived from the biblical Mary, as well as the Greek name meaning fate. Odirain is an Irish name meaning descendant of the exile. It's a fun one. Moira was first shown to players as a member of the Talon Inner Council in the comic book Doomfist Masquerade, and was not given a name or a speaking role. The day before her reveal, a research paper labeled Draft, Repairing Degenerative Genetic Structures, was added to the Oasis map, hinting at Moira's occupation and involvement with Reaper. The story of behind Moira's decrepit right hand hinted to be a result of coming into contact with an anomalous genetic experiment. However, it seems it still doesn't hint at explanation of how those genetics were able to allow plasma production in the biotic system. Moira is the second hero after Diva who can perform the quick melee attack with both her hands, chosen randomly, because she has the palm strike and then she has the swipe with her nasty hand, which is especially nice with that new scientist skin because it has needles on it. So I like that one. Moira has heterochromia on her eyes, the right one being red while the left one is blue. However, it's not known if she was born with it or if she acquired it with one of her experiments. Again, duality. Moira's Blackwatch uniform and skin are based on her earliest concept art, which in turn resembles the clothing worn by Mercy. She's evil Mercy, basically. Moira has some backstory with Mercy, as one utilized tech developed by the other, and I really hope they go into that in like full animation form. I would love to see a Moira Mercy animation. I think it'd be amazing. Alrighty.
I want to see how she changed the Valkyrie suit, because the Blackwatch suit is just her version of the Valkyrie quick response suit.
Oasis University has a special interaction between Reaper and Sombra when on the same team that teased Moira's release. This was before Moira came out. Sombra asked him, what are we doing here, boss? And Reaper responded to her with, I am here to visit an old friend. So that was a fun tease at the time. It is confirmed by Michael Chu that Moira's sprays, her run, as well as her ultimate ability, are anime references, as you can tell by the fact she runs like Naruto.
And the Kamehameha?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It is revealed in Retribution event that Moira likes to dress up and enjoys art. So, again, not all evil. Moira is from Ireland's capital, Dublin, just like her voice actress, Genevieve O'Reilly. I'd love to meet Genevieve O'Reilly. And Moira's choice of drink is Irish coffee, which, if you don't know, is coffee with Jameson's in it. So there you go.
And that's what she's holding in her toast emote, or her toast victory pose. And she even does a little nod. She's like,
alrighty. So that's Moira. Now, on to our favorite part, where we get to discuss our little special favorite things about this particular character. So, favorite voice lines for Moira. There are so many. She has some really good ones, actually. So,
there are so many good ones.
What you got? Break down a couple for me. And you have to do it in the voice. That's the rule.
I actually really like the one, and this, you might not think it, but the idle hands are the devil's workshop. I just like hearing her voice, really, and it's really that really highlights her voice. Get off the stage. It's also a good one. Stupidity is not a right. That's also good.
That's her like tagline to me. Like that's the one thing. Like if you're going to wear a Moira shirt, you really want it to say "stupidity is not a right."
And then there's so many more, but I'm just going to do one more. Is that I like using it when I'm frustrated for my team? Is comp at the beginning of a match. Unbelievable.
All right.
Or this was a triumph. That too. But
this was a triumph.
This is a triumph.
So my favorite Moira lines. I love the old familiar grand. Just because it fits with so many things. Whenever there's like an enemy, a teammate coming up and talking shit at me after they say like, "Oh, are you afraid to fight me?" or something, I'll just go, grand. Just stare at him. I do love the Futurama reference of "good news, everyone." That's a really good one. One of my favorites for telling teammates they're picking the wrong character in Spawn is "you're mistaken." I do like that one. And also the good old famous you make a dog's breakfast of it, which is it's a very Irish thing to say. So yes, those are some of my favorite Moira voice lines. I do like her general spiel though as well. Like just when she's like off the cuff doing stuff. There's when she kills people. I can't remember. There's one thing she says when she kills people that's just like, it's kind of like, you are a fucking idiot, but I can't remember what it is that she actually says now. It's burning me up.
I can't think of it either.
Like she kills him and then she says the sassiest shit ever, and I'm just like, I don't know. It was funny anyway. Okay, let's go
Evolution works quickly today. I like that one.
Favorite skins.
Favorite skins. I'm actually not going to mention many League ones. I'm Boston Uprising, obviously, not just because I like the team, I just like the colors, but they're really good on her. But actually, I really enjoy both the Blackwatch skin and the New Scientist skin. I really like the arm pieces on the New Scientist skin, and I think they'll look really good. I think I'm going to get Moira's gold weapon next on my main account, but I really like how they look. They almost look like braces, as if she's injured her wrists, almost, but with sciencey. I don't know why.
Really
it looks
cool
it just
about
looks cool.
some, like the way they change some of them. Like they will change the ornamentation around them as well on the skins, which is a really subtle thing. But like the needles look amazing in gold. I do have the gold weapon first. Actually, I think the first one I got, but they look incredible in gold. But because like basically before they kind of gave her a little bit more going on, she just kind of had like gold fingernails. It was just, she had a little bit on the wrist, but it was just kind of like, and the thing is, she wore these gigantic ass sleeves, so you couldn't see the wrist, so you just have the fingernails that were gold, which, you know, you want to show her off a little bit. People were campaigning for her to have a gold backpack, like all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I really agree with those. Scientist has grown on me. Was not a fan when I first saw it. The needles made it for me. I do think that's very cool. Blackwatch is great. My favorite, the best in my opinion, Banshee. Banshee skin makes her so fucking terrifying, and it fits with Irish folklore. And as I was mentioning with the changes to her wristlets when she is a Banshee, they're like snakes and stuff that are coming out of her thing, which like golden snakes, and yeah, it's cool as fuck. She's a lot scarier in Banshee.
Not a skin for Keegan.
No, not at all. So yeah, so
Golden Snake
Banshee
sounds like his worst nightmare.
Banshee's one of my favorites for her. I really like that one a lot, and I basically had that like until I switched everything over to Overwatch League team stuff. That was like the always I'm wearing this skin forever. The one thing I do like about Scientist is also that they actually take off her eye patch because it's pre eye patch, and
She just got the little visor.
Yeah, I've never been the biggest fan of the eye patch, so I like that. I do like
Her
seeing her
Blackwatch
face
skin also doesn't have an eye patch.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I like that.
I don't even think it has a line. On the Oasis skin, I don't think she actually has an eye patch, but she has a line as if this is where it's going to go. Like
Right.
it was something that she had planned out.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's about, but anyway, she looks kind of like a Borg with, with the thing. But anyway,
Assimilate.
yeah. I'm actually using Scientist instead of League skins right now, and I think I will for a while.
I always
I just love the skin.
Always wear event skins during the event, and then swap back to League after usually.
I might use it even after the event, honestly. I actually like it that much.
All
But I
right.
really like the blue and yellow Boston Uprising on her.
So let's talk about Moira's place in the meta right now, because it's changed. It's changed. There was a point where Moira was up there with Sim and Torb in the least played characters in the professional league. A lot of people say you can't play Moira in Grandmaster because she simply doesn't put out enough healing, and her utility is not as good as it would be if you were playing Ana or anyone else basically. So what are your thoughts on where she's at currently?
She's in an interesting place because even in the league sometimes now, I don't know how much effect, because I haven't watched many matches where she's been used, but sometimes she's actually being put in place with Zen with effect as well. Like there's actually, she does work, but I'm not sure. She's in an interesting place. That's for sure. She's not always used.
Why we're seeing her more in the league is because now that GOATS is not as prevalent, still prevalent, but not as prevalent, she's not very good against GOATS. She used to be a part of the original GOATS, but she's not very good against it. But with DPS making a comeback, like as in there's a lot more matches where they're DPS heavy now. I've seen Trip, sometimes even quad DPS, which is like kind of funny because the amount of people that complain about that in comp. But Moira is excellent against squishies. She's excellent against them, especially Genjis. Tracers don't do her much bother either. Throw out a healing orb and just keep following her. So there's a lot of folks that will use her for two reasons. One, she's good against DPS comps, and two, she's good at getting to point quickly. So I've seen her replaced as like a Zenyatta, for example. Like I've seen Boom player, I've seen Dogman player, I've seen a lot of folks. There's like some people will just play her out of the gate, which I love. Like it's kind of just like nice to see that character get some more screen time in professional play as a main for her, and as kind of just like knowing that she can put in work when she's used correctly. So yeah, I'm a fan of her current position in the meta. I wish it was more consistent, but at the same time, as long as I get to see her play sometimes, I'm kind of happy about it. I will almost always, like I said, the all access pass, I will almost always watch whoever's playing Moira just to kind of see what they're doing with her different to what I do. So that's fun. I think she's okay. I think she's doing all right. She's creeping in slowly, shall we say. And then what tweaks would you make to Moira, if any, to improve her abilities and or ultimate?
I think the one tweak I would make to her is let her damage orb refill her healing, because it doesn't right now. It's not like something I absolutely like must have, but it would be nice, just because sometimes like you just can't get any resources at all, and you're out and you have to keep healing your team, and your tanks are like spamming, I need healing, and you've already put all your resources in it, and it usually means that your other healer isn't doing their job as well. But it would be nice just to have that option to throw out a damage orb just to get your resources up a bit.
I agree. I actually, yeah, that was going to be one of my suggestions, was that I think that the damage orb not refilling her healing, I don't know if they figured that was too OP or not at the time, but considering kind of like her place in the meta and everything, where now like resource is one of the big reasons why people don't use her, because frankly, you're coming under so much fire at the professional level that sometimes she can't, like you need a consistent healer, you need an Ana, you need a Lucio that has an aura up and can amp up every once in a while. I feel like that's definitely an underrated thing that could potentially swing her towards being full-time meta if that was an option. And also those DPS Moiras would stop complaining about never having any resources, so that would be nice to an extent too. I was thinking about her ultimate, honestly, because her ultimate, whilst good, a lot of people think it's trash. Like, there's a lot of people that think Coalescence is garbage. I don't happen to think that. I think it is a really useful ultimate. There could be tweaks made to it, but honestly, I don't even know what I would do. Like, I was thinking about this. Like, I mean, it already does an awful lot of output on both the healing and damage side. The only thing I could think would be to maybe widen the range of it a little bit, because it's very much like you said, the Kamehameha thing right now. I don't know how to pronounce it. The Dragon Ball thing where it's like a direct beam. Maybe just widening it up a little bit so you could, because like her thing is that she can do like not so much with the damage hand, but with the healing hand, like you can do a quick arch of a spray that will just get like everyone in like a 90-degree angle in front of you. And I think a lot of what Moira kind of does best is be able to handle multiple things at one time, be able to damage multiple people, throw out a purple orb, it'll attach to anyone within its range, throw out a healing orb, it'll attach to anyone within its range. It wouldn't have to be that much wider, just a little bit wider, you know what I mean? And I think that way, if you could catch more people within its grasp, then it would be more effective without really giving away too much, like without really like making her OP. It just would mean that they'd get slightly more value out of it if your team was kind of more clumped up, rather than being in a directly straight line that they kind of have to be now for you to get super value out of it. So that would be one of the changes, I think. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it would be nice. I almost think that just extending the range to be longer also.
Yeah.
Not do both. Do one or the other.
Can you imagine being able to take a Widow out from across the map with that thing? That'd be amazing. Or like Symmetra's thing, where it is like a true Goku thing, where it's just going through the entirety of the map, wherever they are. You just swing it around until you kill things. That'd be amazing.
But yeah, that would be nice. I don't think it's really necessary, but it would be nice.
Well, I think the angle would be the best change you can make to it. I think, and it's a small thing, but I think it would work. Alrighty. Anything else you think that you want to add for Moira? Any tips or things like that?
Balancing damage and healing is your friend.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say.
And I'm sorry, Reddit. I know you're going to read this because I'm going to post this on the Moira main subreddit, as I do every week. Whenever there's a hero, I post it on the main subreddit. So you guys can hear our opinions about your favorite heroes. But Moira is so fucking controversial whenever I bring up anything about her, because there's people that just like are so one-track minded with like, you have to heal, or people that go the other way and play her like a straight DPS character. The balance,
you have to do both.
The balance is key, folks. It's the balance. You have to do both, and you have to do both effectively.
She almost requires more balance than Zen. She should be the freaking monk, honestly.
Yeah. But yeah, she is, in my opinion, a fantastic character, highly underutilized, very powerful in the lower tiers, absolutely powerful in the lower tiers, and I just think that if you're struggling right now to find a healer that has like that you could be effective with, but you don't necessarily have to worry about landing a sleep dart from 50 meters away, then Moira's your girl. So yeah.
Honestly, my climbing recently in solo queue on my main account has been Brig and Moira.
Yep. Yeah, great for climbing.
And Sombra a little bit.
Yeah. Alrighty. That's our show. That's episode 4 of Hero Recall. Thank you so much for joining us. As usual, you can join our Twitter account. Please do. Please follow us on @HeroRecallOW, as in capital O, capital W for Overwatch. And we need more folks on our Twitter, guys. We have opinions. We have thoughts and feelings. We need you to interact with us there. But also,
we want to ask you questions.
Yeah, we want to ask you questions. And we also want you to comment on these videos. If you have opinions, and I know that you do, especially about Moira, then please comment below. Let me know your thoughts and feelings. If you think that the podcast has way too much OWL stuff and not enough Overwatch stuff, let us know. We're like making this around you and as an introductory podcast podcast to Overwatch, to professional Overwatch, to the characters. It's about your thoughts and feelings, and it's about all these new fans that are coming in just now because Overwatch is taking off even more so than it did 2 years ago. It's really coming into its own, and this podcast was designed for new to Overwatch people and also longtime fans as well. We're trying to appeal to a lot of folks, and it's not always easy to get that balance right. So any feedback you have is super valuable to us. Please let us know. I promise you, we're so approachable. We'll answer, we'll talk to all of you. Alrighty. So next time, not sure what hero we're doing next. It'll be a fun surprise. We are working on some fun guest appearances for you. We should have some really kind of fun folks on the show later on. Maybe Keegan will join us again one day. Who knows? But yeah, so I guess we're going to be off to play Overwatch. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching or listening, because the world needs more heroes like you. See you next time. Bye.